Today I will show you a comedy, crime, drama film from 2015, titled Focus. The con man Nicky Spurgeon goes to a bar in New York City. There he sees a beautiful young blonde woman with a man who seems to be pestering her. She flees from him and goes to Nicky's table to use him as a scapegoat. Her name is Jess. After a few drinks, she seduces Nicky into going upstairs to her hotel room, and they start making out. Then a man storms into the room with a gun and threatens to shoot Nicky. Jess says that he is her husband. Nicky then jokes that he has cancer, and Jess figures that he's onto them. Nicky says that the attempt was atrocious and how they should have done it if they really wanted to rob him before he leaves. Curiosity gets the better of him, and after Jess leaves the hotel, he approaches her and invites her out for coffee. Nicky tells her a story about two partners who were involved in a scam gone wrong, where one partner had to shoot the other to make it appear they were not working together. The partners in question were Nicky's father and grandfather, and one shot the other with something called Toledo panic button. Jess begs Nicky to teach her. He agrees and says that the con is a game of focus. Outside, Nicky explains that attention is a spotlight and their job is to dance in the dark. The human brain is slow and cannot multitask. You have to get inside the victim's head and perceive things from their perspective, he continues as he lifts things from her. He wishes her luck and leaves. Nicky takes his business to New Orleans with his friend Horst and his own team of grifters. On a side note, Nicky has a gambling problem as he loses money on a horse race. Jess finds Nicky a few days later after doing her research on him. She asks him to let her join the team. Nicky agrees to try her out and instantly introduces her to Horst. He knew Jess was coming. It's Super Bowl week and the town is packed with people. Jess joins them for a practice round. They lead her through the crowded streets where they swipe watches, purses and other jewelry from unsuspecting people. Nicky is impressed and she gets to join the team. They also take her to a hotel casino where they let her in on even more of their schemes, like identity theft and credit card forgery. They even set up fake ATMs to record the PIN codes. Jess meets Nicky's friend and partner Farhad. He's involved in even more complicated schemes. Farhad basically ignores Jess' existence and asks everything about her, even if Nicky will be tapping that because he surely would. Despite his behavior, Jess still takes a liking to him. When explaining to Jess what they are doing with the stolen data in their base and how business and that big scams are just a fantasy. While all the bags are checked and the money is counted, Nicky asks for a cash stack to bid on a racetrack. Nicky gets Jess a place to stay, and when she asks him for a lift, he tells her she'd better get a cab. He points out to her that there should be no romantic relationship between them. Sometime later, he comes to her anyway and they start getting it on. Jess asks Nicky why some people call him mellow. He says his dad used to call him that because he told him he was soft like a marshmallow. Nicky believes that there is no room for heart in this game because it can get you killed. The night before the big game, when all the cheating is through, Nicky turns to the team and congratulates them on a record-breaking week that brought in $1.2 million. He sends everyone home with the usual promise to send them their cut. Horst gives Nicky the bag of money and makes Nicky promise that he will not gamble with it. Nicky promises as Jess looks on. Nicky and Jess are going to a football game. Jess mentions that she does not like football, so Nicky makes a game of making little bets with each other, like whether one fan will catch a hot dog and whether another will be too drunk to stand up for the wave. They see a woman in short shorts and bet how many men will look at her butt as she walks by. Jess bets 8 and Nicky bets 3. A curious man named Mr. Liuyan joins the game and bets 5. 7 men look at the woman's butt as she walks by, with Jess being the closest. Liuyan suggests they place some bets on the game. Jess declines, since she does not know anything about football. Nicky accepts his suggestion and they bet $1,000, with Nicky losing. When Nicky wants to fold, Liuyan practically begs him to play along. Reluctantly, Nicky agrees and raises the bet. He loses and gives him the stack of bills. The stakes escalate as the two get going. After losing $100,000, Jess thrusts the bag of cash into Nicky's arms and tells him they have to leave. He takes the money, slides it on the table, and bets all of the remaining cash, $1.1 million, on a simple high card draw. Liuyan is thrilled. He calls and draws a 5. Nicky is elated as the odds are in his favor. When he turns the card over, he sees a 3. He loses everything their team has been working on. Jess sits down in shock and Nicky just stands there stunned. Nicky finally has enough and wants to leave. Mr. Liuyan goads him again. That's what you get for playing with the big boys. Nicky turns around and decides to double the bet again. He tells Liuyan to pick any player on the field, and he will guess which one it is, a seemingly impossible chance. Mr. Liuyan thinks he's crazy and does not bet on crazy people, so he declines. Nicky sweetens the deal by saying Jess will pick the player Liuyan saw, much to Jess' dismay. Liuyan cannot turn down free money, so he picks a player. As Jess nervously looks through the binoculars, Liuyan gives them a chance to back out. Jess looks to Nicky, who seems to be begging him to take this chance to back out, but Nicky tells her to pick. Jess nervously scans the players again. Suddenly, she spots Farhad, who is wearing a number 55 jersey. She grins and picks him, and to everyone's, but Nicky's surprise, that's the right answer. On the cab ride home, Nicky, now carrying a lot of money, explains to Jess that this was planned from the beginning. He knew Liuyan was a notorious gambler, so he set it up so Liuyan would see the number 55 throughout the day, subconsciously making him pick that number when the moment was right. Nicky then has the taxi pull over while another car pulls up behind them. He instructs the cab driver to take Jess to the airport. He leaves her share of the money and drives off without another word, leaving Jess confused and heartbroken. 3 years later. In Buenos Aires, Argentina, Nicky is working with a billionaire race car owner named Rafael Garriga and his partner Owens. They are in possession of a revolutionary new fuel burn algorithm that will give them an edge in the upcoming season. However, Rafael is worried that this will not be enough. Therefore, Nicky is to pose as a disgruntled former employee of Rafael and sell a fake version to another team owner, McEwen, who is his biggest competitor. As a result, the competition gets slower while he gets faster. Nicky goes to a party at Rafael's mansion. He tells the bartender to pour him water when he asks for vodka on the rocks, since he is an alcoholic, to give the impression that he is getting drunk. Nicky makes conversation with all the guests. When he goes to confront Rafael as part of his plan, he sees Jess coming down the stairs in a stunning red dress and freezes. She kisses Rafael to Nicky's disdain. He then approaches Jess and she assures him that she's doing fine on her own and has moved on from the deceitful game. Nicky looks dejected and goes to get a glass of vodka. He gets poured water instead. Another bartender told everyone about his problem, so he does not even get a drink. After getting drunk on appletinis, Nicky plays his part as a disgruntled employee, but instead of shoving Rafael, he punches him right in the face, venting his pent-up anger at him for being with Jess. After Owens escorts Nicky out, he is approached by McEwen's guard and is given McEwen's credentials, inviting him for a lunch. The next day, while Nicky is having lunch with McEwen, Ricky finds it hard to concentrate on talking to him. He is irritated and stares at Jess, who is flirting with Rafael. They resolve to get back to each other later when they have definitive proof that the fuel-burning algorithm Nicky has is real. He approaches Jess while she's away from Rafael and tells her not to trust him. She turns the tables and asks why she should trust Nicky after he left her behind. As she walks away, she tosses him his wallet, hinting that her game is still on point. Ricky strikes a deal with McEwen for €3 million after data shows Nicky's fake algorithm is credible. Nicky spends a lot of time trying to get closer to Jess, using nasty strategies like the old granny who loses her handbag just to talk to her. Jess tells Nicky everything he wants to hear in a flirty voice, and just before a kiss, she whispers softly, "I have learned a lot since we last met, and I'd love to show you, like how I learned to play men like I just played you." She tells Nicky to stay away from her. She's not falling for his bullshit again. As a last resort, Nicky brings in Farhad to convince Jess that she should give Nicky a break and that he's sorry about New Orleans. He hands her the necklace she had her eye on 3 years ago. Nicky manages to have another conversation with her. He tells her that he has not worked in a few years because it does not feel right and that he even turned to his father for help. Jess gets right to the point. "What do you want from me?" Nicky says he's a different person, but as much as she wants that, Jess has a hard time believing it because he's a fraudulent man. Jess leaves and was followed. When Nicky returns to his hotel suite, he sees Jess sitting next to his door. They make love. The next morning, he tells her he's leaving tonight and wants Jess to come with him. Right after that, Owens is at Nicky's door. He tries to get rid of him, but Owen just walks in while Jess tries to stay out of sight. Owens complains about his feelings towards the younger generation and Nicky's lack of progress on the job while pacing around the flat like he's looking for someone. Jess escapes to the balcony where she manages to elude Owens and he leaves after setting down a package. Nicky ends up selling Rafael's real algorithm not only to McEwen but to every other race team for the same price. He wishes them all luck and gets the same response, "Who needs luck with friends like you?" amounting to about €27 million in cash. Nicky receives word that he has been found out, but he hesitates to leave without Jess. With time running out, he grabs his bags and opens the door to see Jess. "Sorry I am late." One of McEwen's guards buys unusual things in a shop. The cashier gives him a look. After a quick meal, he checks his watch, buckles up, puts on his protective gear, and floors the gas pedal, ramming into Nicky's car. Jess and Nicky are kidnapped and taken to one of Raphael's warehouses with duct tape around their mouths. He was a spy in McEwen's company to keep an eye on Nicky. Raphael tells Nicky that he knows he sold the real algorithm to McEwen for $3 million, but there is $27 million in his bags, from which he concludes that he sold the algorithm to everyone. Raphael wants to know how he got the real algorithm. He holds Jesse's nose until Nicky starts talking. Nicky finally admits that he used Jess and put a bug on her necklace, so when she returned to Raphael's hotel room, the bug intercepted his computer password. Jess starts to cry. Raphael laughs because he knows it's a lie and takes the tape off her mouth. She admits to Nicky that Raphael is not her boyfriend, she just wanted his watch, which is worth $200,000. She never slept with him and was not even in his room, even though Raphael kept trying to get into bed with her. Jess did all this to make Nicky jealous and to get revenge. Nicky finally settles for telling the truth, and just as he's about to start, he's shot in the chest by Owens, which horrifies Garriga and causes him to leave. Nicky appears to be bleeding out while Jess cries and tells him she loves him. It looks like Nicky is going to die until Owens says he hit Nicky in the right place to avoid the major arteries, even though he punctured his lung. Owens gets the blood out of Nicky's lungs and brings him back to life. Owens then calls Nicky mellow, making Jess realize that Owens is Nicky's father, Nicky Spurgeon, that he was in on the scam all along and that they just performed the Toledo panic button. The package Owen left Nicky one morning was the real algorithm. Owens drives Nicky and Jess to the nearest hospital. He reminds Nicky of what he said regarding putting your heart into the con game and adds that he'll take all the money. Jess helps Nicky walk to the entrance of the hospital. Nicky grins when he notices that Jess is wearing Garriga's watch on her wrist.